Welcome to Accelerated Battlefield Combatives. I'm Chris Lieutenant X Pizzo, creator of Noble Learning Systems and co-founder of the International Association of Close Combat Professionals, as well as your host and instructor for this series. But before we dive right into the meat of this course, we need to have a very serious talk about everything I'm about to show you. You see, the concepts of personal protection, fighting, self-defense, and martial arts is a very touchy subject, and it all has to do with the simple fact that the actual act of fighting is all based solely upon our survival instinct. What I mean is that no sane person, even soldiers, professional fighters, or trained martial artists, truly want to hurt or kill another human being. But when it comes to that kill or be killed moment, your natural survival instinct will take over and do whatever it can to save your life. Therefore, learning to properly defend yourself is much more than just avoiding injury, humiliation, or even death. It's a way of confident living on all levels by harnessing those natural survival instincts to combat our greatest enemy of all, fear. And it's that underlying notion of fear is what makes debating what is the best martial art just as pointless as debating what is the best religion or what is the best political standpoint. Because no matter what you say, no one, after being a devout Christian, Jew, Republican, Democrat, karate guy, MMA fighter, kung fu master, judo Olympian, whatever, is going to suddenly say, hey, you're right. Everything I've been doing my entire life has been wrong. I'll gladly throw away all those years of devotion, study, and sacrifice and instantly change my position just because you made a good argument. Luckily, again, just like religion and politics, martial arts can be divided into separate factions to accommodate every individual's wants, needs, abilities, and interests. The problem lies in that thanks to movies, TV, the internet, and the simple fact that post-World War II, there is no actual proof of any one method of fighting being completely dominant in all situations, that these once important divisions of martial arts have blurred to the point of non-existence. That all being said, it is important for you to understand that there are actually three types of martial arts. They are cultural fighting arts, combative sport, and self-defense. All have many overlapping elements, but each category is distinctively different and must be treated as such. But with hundreds of styles of martial arts out there, which is which? And what is the difference between them all? Well, let's break it down. The first category, cultural fighting arts, is everything from traditional karate, to hapkido, to kempo, to eskrima, to aikido, to kung fu, to the countless other cultural fighting arts that have been developed throughout history by almost every civilization. All are fun to do, all are very interesting, and all provide a very well-rounded education in world culture and martial theory. However, no cultural fighting art has any proof of dominant effectiveness in the modern world. Yes, you heard me right. Aikido, karate, kung fu, etc. is not proven effective self-defense, nor does it classify as proven effective combat sport. Therefore, without an abundance of proof, it is only martial theory, not fact. The second category is combative sport. Combative sports include Olympic judo, taekwondo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, all forms of wrestling, Western boxing, and most recently MMA, mixed martial arts, which has been popularized by events such as UFC and Pride Fighting. In combative sport, you are forced to prove the effectiveness of your methods and skill in live combat. There is no guesswork, no debate. In other words, it either works and you win, or it doesn't work and you lose. We all saw Royce Gracie easily pick apart the cultural fighting art practitioners in the first couple of UFCs. Search the internet for Muay Thai knockouts, and you'll see some talented and hardworking combative athletes blasting each other until unconsciousness. Search the internet for Muay Thai knockouts, and you'll see some talented and hardworking combative athletes blasting each other until unconsciousness. But it too is not self-defense. It is only a training and conditioning method for self-defense. Do you understand? A great example is how the ancient Greeks used wrestling, boxing, and other Olympic events as training for war, not as the actual techniques used on the battlefield. But even a more simplistic explanation is simply that the rules, regulations, and referees that are required in combative sport are not going to be there when someone is trying to kill you in a dark alley. So no, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, wrestling, judo, boxing, etc. are not methods of self-defense either. Training for self-defense application, yes. Self-defense, no. Combative sport is what you use to train yourself to make sure that your self-defense works under battle stress conditions. So finally, let's talk about self-defense. Self-defense defined is protecting yourself from attack. It sounds simple, right? And it is. The real trick is that there are 1,000,001 different ways you can be attacked. Everything from a drunk tackling you at the local bar, to an armed mugging on your way home from work, to a carjacking, to being caught in the middle of a military or terrorist operation. Self-defense has one purpose, and one purpose only: to survive. And that brings us back full circle to the fact that survival is dependent on the manipulation of fear into something you can use, which is exactly what we're going to cover in this course. So listen, learn, and practice. Do not abandon or quit any cultural fighting art or combative sport you currently participate in, if any. Replacement is not the purpose of this course, our company, or any of our material. It's simply to add to your existing knowledge base a toolbox of methods that work under any conditions to save your life when that time comes. Let's get started. Fighting is a funny thing. Watch any professional combative sport and you'll eventually see that anyone can beat anyone else on any given day. Like most things in nature, there is no 100% answer to anything. But when it comes to matters of life and death, the smart thing to do is stack the odds in your favor. Based on that logic, there is only one method of self-defense that has been documented and statistically proven effective under any circumstances for any individual. And that method is the system of World War II combatives. I'm standing now in the Zenshin School of Tekken Jiu-Jitsu and Kodokan Judo. This is a special place for me, and is where I first learned the truth about self-defense. Opened by self-defense specialist Damian Ross, until recently, this site has served as the only place on the planet to learn the full curriculum devised by the last direct expert of World War II combatives, Carl Sestari. Like many of us whom he took under his wing, Carl began as an avid practitioner of both cultural fighting arts and competitive combat sport. But through his work as a soldier and police officer, he realized that there were blatant and obvious gaps in these methods of martial training. The nagging doubt that what you were practicing would not work in real kill or be killed combat. Can you relate? It's what brought me here, and most likely you as well. After seeing his sergeant, an old World War II vet, walk away completely unscathed from a bloody biker brawl, Carl sought out and trained personally with World War II self-defense legend Charlie Nelson. His continued research and passion for the subject led him to Colonel Rex Applegate, author of the famous military manual Kill or Be Killed, and again in turn to the lost works and methods of Biddle, Sykes, O'Neill, and most importantly, their teacher, William Fairbairn. You see, in preparation for war against the greatest threat the world has ever seen, the Nazis, the British Foreign Services funded an effort to discover what really worked in both armed and unarmed close combat in the 1920s and 30s. In other words, did this exotic martial arts stuff really work? Or was it just a lot of smoke and mirrors? William Fairbairn was the man that they trusted with this project, and for good reason. Fairbairn was not only an expert in judo and jiu-jitsu by way of Japan, but he put it and everything else he learned from his eastern and western travels to good use, defending the most violent city in recorded history as commander of the Shanghai Municipal Police prior to World War II. Taking his vast and proven in combat knowledge back to England, Canada, and the United States, Fairbairn trained commandos, spies, and special forces to take on and neutralize the Nazi threat. Fairburn to Biddle, Kelly, Sykes, O'Neill, and Applegate. Biddle, Kelly, and Applegate to Charlie Nelson. Applegate and Nelson to Sestari. Carl Sestari to the 5 ranking instructors of the complete method of World War II combatives: Damian Ross, Clint Sporman, Roger Jones, Peter Barry, and me, Chris Pizzo, the executive board of the International Association of Close Combat Professionals. And now us to you, starting with this accelerated battlefield combatives learning course. So why exactly are World War II combatives the only proven and documented method of successful self-defense? One word: fear. To understand this fully, you have to understand what actually happens to your body during kill or be killed combat. And to understand your body, we need to look to what actually controls it: your heart. At 60 to 80 beats per minute, you are in a resting heart rate, and everything in your sympathetic nervous system is performing normally. But when frightened to 115 beats per minute, your fine motor skills deteriorate. The ability to put a key into a car door or even tie your shoes rapidly goes down the drain. However, from 115 to 145 beats per minute is the optimal survival and combat performance level for complex motor skills, visual reaction time, and cognitive thinking. Complex motor skills are multi-muscle involved movements as found in all martial arts: reverse punch, front kick, wrist lock, arm bar, hip throw, etc. And this is the reason why it is so important for police officers, soldiers, and other people who are constantly in harm's way to practice some sort of combative sport, as well as learn the methods of World War II combatives that we're going to show you. If you are able to train your body to respond appropriately to fear-induced stress under competitive conditions, you will be better able to perform your duties during battle. Because at 145 beats per minute, your complex motor skills immediately begin to deteriorate. And at 175 beats per minute, you can't think straight, you lose peripheral vision, your hearing excludes everything not in that tunnel vision, and vasoconstriction sets in as a natural way to reduce bleeding from any wounds you're about to suffer. Then, above 175 is where irrational fight or flight sets in, as well as natural submissive behavior, combat freezing, and the emptying of your bladder and bowels. At this point, the only movement ability you have left is gross motor skills: running, charging, and the wide arcing of your limbs. But this is exactly where World War II combatives operate, at the gross motor movement level, and therefore can still be performed perfectly and effectively under any level of fear-induced combat stress. Now, let's start filling your toolbox with these methods. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is your stance. Now, the big misconception is that, well, if I'm suddenly attacked, that, am I even going to be able to get it into some sort of stance? Boxing, karate, kung fu, whatever. And the reality is no. But you have to have some sort of tool to at least fall back on. And so if you are suddenly attacked, you know the first thing to do is to at least fix your stance, to make sure you're not knocked to the ground, to make sure that you're not bowled over. And the big important concept that's going to carry throughout this course is the concept of constantly driving forward, which is a basic military tactic of driving forward and taking ground. So our stance, and whether we're talking to someone, or we feel threatened, or somebody suddenly pops out of somewhere, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Your first priority is always to get to this stance. And this stance is simply a staggered stance, so your weight is balanced, your back foot on your toes, and the weight distributed evenly. The reason that your back foot and your heel is off the ground is very simple. It stops any forward momentum, and for you to drive back in, it serves as the launching point to drive you forward. Now, when you add to that hand positions, and many of the police officers watching this will know exactly what I'm talking about, automatically adding your hand position to your staggered stance puts you in an entirely another field of experience against any random attacker. Your hands must always be above your attackers, your assailants, your opponents. BJ, why don't you come out here? Just stand right over here. Whether you're talking to somebody, feel threatened or not, it's just a great habit to start getting used to doing the hand and feet stance. It's completely unobtrusive. They don't feel threatened at all. There's it's not rude. It's just good practice. And you'll notice that all of us on the instructor staff, even shooting video sometimes, the way we stand is just like this. It's just a habit. Keeping your hands above the other person's. If the person has their hand at their waist, you're talking, you can have your hand on your belt. You can have them here, as long as they're above it. If they have their hand on their belt or their waistline, okay, or their hips, right, you can cross your arms. Keep your hands on your hips, right? You can cross your arms, right? Do not fold your arms, because then you're tying yourself in a knot. Just place them on top of one another, right? If you need to drive back in, you can drive back in, right? Everything's free. If their arms are crossed, okay, you're up here. Okay, you're up here. Okay, you're up here. As long as something is above it, because if he comes in, okay, you have the higher ground, which is another important military concept that's proven effective throughout history. All right, forward momentum, drive, staying above. If the person is up here, or that has their hands high, or even gets into some sort of fighting stance, you go to, hey, I don't want any trouble. All right, this is still having their hands higher. If you need to get to them, down, and you can come in. All right, if they come in on you, it doesn't matter. You can do everything step off line, which we're going to cover in a minute. But your hands are above theirs. That's the important thing that we're talking about now. Thanks. All right, just a quick review. Staggered stance. Okay, make sure your weight's distributed evenly. All right, make sure that maybe 70-30 on your back foot, so you can push forward, defend yourself from being attacked and pushed backwards. It's very hard to describe it on video. Seriously, stand up and just get in the stance. You'll automatically, naturally feel it. Whether the fear response in a competitive environment, this is natural. Again, gross body movement stances that are that regardless of your heart rate, you're able to manipulate yourself into these. Okay, the first technique we're going to talk about is a finger dart. The big misconception on this is that we are actually going to drive our finger into somebody's eye or somewhere specific. We've already covered that when your heart rate gets above 145 beats per minute, that you have no fine motor movements. You have your complex motor movement just flew out the window. Everything is gross. You will not be able to target anything exactly thanks to your fear-induced state. So a finger dart, we're going to get in our stance, keep our hands comfortable above our opponents or aggressor, right? And a finger dart is simply shooting your full arm out with your fingers extended. And that's it. Anywhere you hit them, Beach, come on out here. Just stand right there. Anywhere you hit them on the face is going to make them automatically at least pause for a fraction of a second. And that's all we're looking for. We're not looking to gouge their eye out. We're not looking to break their nose. We're not looking to fish hook their mouth. We're not looking to knock them out. All right? All we're looking to do is stop them for a split second. Boom. Okay? To get that reaction. All right? Whether they're putting their head back, whether they're putting, so Beach, why don't you step off and just come back in. Okay? Just walk right into me. Boom. Okay? That reaction is what we're looking for. All right, just that split second pause to open something up, whether it's to run or whether it's to drive back in, it doesn't matter. That's deadly, deadly important, all right, to stop that forward drive. And the finger dart does a great job on it. Now, hey, if you happen to get them in the eyes or in the mouth, some sort of fish hook, rip their cheek through, or drive their face back, all right, that's an entirely another move, but hey, that's all good. There's no rules and regulations in kill or be killed combat. All right. Dovetailing off of that is a whip kick. Instead of now again, we talked a little bit before about cultural fighting arts and combat sport. You know, traditional front kick, traditional side kicks are excellent techniques, but they're complex motor movements. And again, in a fear-induced state, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to chamber your leg up and drive out perfectly. What you are going to be able to do is lift your leg, and that's all the whip kick is. Whip kick is simply boom. That's it. Think of kicking somebody in the shins really fast. If you're inside, it's lifting your leg, and that's it. It usually goes hand in hand with the finger dart to stop the forward momentum. So let's do that. Back up. Come on in, okay? Finger dart, whip kick, boom, stop the momentum. Notice how his weight went on his back foot, okay? This works whether he's charging from running from, you know, a quarter mile away into you or just some pops around the corner. This stopping momentum, as long as he's on his back heel, it gives you now the opportunity to drive back in and do what you need to do. Okay, elbows. Elbows, especially in combative sports like Muay Thai, there's loads of different ways to do elbows. What we're interested in doing for this application is to continue with the concept of gross motor movement, and that in Muay Thai, there's a lot. The object is to either cut your opponent or knock them out, which is why they either come across the top or they come to the cross ear and up to open it up. For self-defense applications, unless you are a highly trained individual, again, those are still complex motor movements because you are using thought process to manipulate gross motor movements. There's a big difference between this and this.